Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
What's up? We're here.
Hello.
I'm T,
I'm Jay.
and we are here to talk about serial killers. So if you're here to listen to anything other than that, you are on the wrong channel. Probably want to
But
stop.
feel free to stick around if you want to listen.
Listen, if you like serial killers, we're the people to listen to.
Not
but
necessarily but enjoy listening to stories.
Sure. Yeah, we can say it that way. That's probably a better way to say it. So that's what we're here to do. So again, welcome. If you're new here, we appreciate you giving us a listen. For warning, we definitely have some good times and some bickering and some stuff.
Banter.
So be prepared. Hold on to your butt cheeks and we'll get going.
But first, before we get going, what are you drinking?
Oh, the ever loving question, what am I drinking? Well, for this episode, I am actually drinking water. I'm drinking water, and I'm drinking water because we're getting ready to go on a trip tomorrow morning, and I need to go to bed, and I need to stay hydrated. I'm also on a new medication, so I need to really stay hydrated. So I'm just chugging away at the water. I'm very hydrated.
Water's a good choice, and that's what I've stuck with as well, just because we are getting on a plane. We got to go to bed early so we can get up early.
You don't want to be drinking like a bunch of stuff like
even
soda
though
or coffee.
Even though caffeine doesn't really do anything anymore, just in case it wants to keep me up, I'd rather just have water and go to bed.
Well, and even though like Jay said, caffeine doesn't really affect me anymore, but honestly, I drink about one coffee cup of coffee a day, and that's about all I can handle. And I drink mine like in the morning, and then it's like it makes me full. Like I get full drinking coffee.
If I had a bigger coffee cup, I would say I drink just one coffee, but
yeah.
I drink two.
Yeah. Well, and I love me some tea and honey, so I might actually have some of that when I'm done recording this, actually.
Booyah!
But as for what I'm drinking right now, it's just water, which is super fucking boring.
And for all you fans out there that have listened, I know you were hoping for Milo's.
And he can't because he drank it all.
I did. Because I'm like, look, I'm going to be gone for a week. I'm not going to have it sit in the fridge and get nasty.
Do y'all know that I bought that?
Finished it.
I bought that not even a week ago. Not even a week ago. We bought the Milos not even a week ago. And he is the only one who drinks it. So he drank that whole entire thing by himself.
It's like crack cocaine.
Apparently. I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Neither would I. I'm just guessing because it's very addicting because it tastes good.
Okay.
All right. And with that, brings us to what y'all have been waiting for. Who we talking about?
So normally we'd be talking about a serial killer, but on this week's episode, we are talking about two serial killers who are partners in crime. We are talking about a man named Dale Hausner and a man named Samuel Dieteman. Now, they were nicknamed the serial shooter. They had 8 victims. The murder dates were 2005 to 2006. This happened in Phoenix, Arizona. The method of murder is shooting, and the characteristic is drive-by shootings. Now, some of you may have heard of this. I had not heard of this, but some of you may have heard of this because it was all over the news apparently in the early 2000s in Arizona. We're just going to get into it.
Which I've heard of. I mean, there's the famous case of the guy and the kid with the sniper that was in the car. They are considered serial killers because there was cooling off periods between each kill.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
It was over on the East Coast. It was the guy that was sniping everybody, and he was doing it out of he was laying down in the back of his car and there was a hole in his trunk. It's a big case, but I never really thought of drive-bys equating to serial
I think
killer.
it's because normally with a drive-by, you see a lot of people injured or killed at once, and that would be like a spree killer or like a mass killer, a mass shooter. So that is not the case with Dale and Samuel. So we normally start out with the background of these people. But I mean, this week, because we get to talk about a duo set of serial killers, that would be super exciting. But yet, of course, it would be just our luck that there is really no background information on their early lives or most of their lives, literally, for either of them. So I will tell you the tiniest bit of information about them, which was really hard to find. So we'll start with Dale. Dale was born February 4th, 1973 in Phoenix, Arizona. And the best description of his childhood would be, well, the best description that I could find about his childhood is that it was a troubled one. It was a troubled one. They said there were also some indications that he also struggled with substance abuse throughout his life. But that's it. That's all we know. That's all we know about Dale's earlier life. We do know that he worked as a custodian at the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. He started there in 1999. And then we also know that he was a boxing journalist for multiple sports publications. He worked for Ring Sports and FightNews.com. Now, in 1994, Dale does lose both of his sons in a car accident. The car had actually crashed into a creek and both of his sons drowned.
Do we know how old were the
I do not know how old they were.
Young?
I have no idea. But due to this, Dale ends up falling into a deep depression, which also leads to the end of his marriage as well. And this is when he begins to start drinking and he starts joyriding around Phoenix with his brother Jeff. And Jeff actually ends up introducing him to a guy named Samuel Dieteman at a bar. Now, Samuel was born October 17th, 1975, so he's 2 years younger than Dale. And again, nothing is known about his younger years, but what we do know is that he had a history of drunk driving. And we also know that at one point he leaves Arizona for a little while to go live in Minnesota, but he does eventually end up moving back to Arizona. And we know that he was the father of two little girls. We know that his wife left him in 2001. And I don't know if she took the children or if she left him with the kids. It kind of sounds like she left him with the kids. Now, according to his family, this leads to a drug addiction for Samuel when his wife leaves, because it's like, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back for him. And he ends up actually losing his apartment, and he lives with his mother and stepfather for a hot minute, but then actually also gets kicked out of that home because of an overconsumption of alcohol. Now, it's at this point when he gets kicked out of his parents' home that he ends up moving in with Dale, because him and Dale had met. They became friends. Dale was single. His wife had left him. He had just gone through a divorce. And obviously Samuel is having the same issues. And so they're like, oh, okay, let's bunk together. Now, the two of them, once they move in together, they start to come up with a money-making scheme. So Samuel would go and steal CDs and alcohol from like stores and places.
And for some of that younger generation or older, no, younger, CDs were compact discs that they used to play music on. Everybody streams nowadays. I don't know how many people know about CDs.
I mean, I feel like most people still kind
of know
what
so.
a CD is.
And if you're so
not.
young you don't, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
Exactly. Now, Dale would then take those CDs and those alcohol, and he would sell them to his coworkers. So, like, they had this little scheme. Like, he'd go steal, and then he'd turn around and sell this stuff to his coworkers and, like, friends and stuff. The two of them also like to set fires together, and they would usually set fires to trees or trash piles. And they also started to make a habit of beating up homeless people. That's what they did in their pastime.
Well, maybe they were part of those, because I remember in the it was in the mid to late, I think it was in the mid 2000s where people were like filming themselves fighting homeless people.
Again, don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and then there was the whole bum fights craze where they were getting bums to fight each other, and yeah.
You hung out with a different crowd, buddy.
Not hanging out, it's social media.
I don't ever recall seeing that. So, again, you just have a different algorithm. We'll just say you have a different algorithm. So, we're going to get into the murders. Now, here's the thing. This is not your typical serial killer that we normally talk about. All of the victims were victims of drive-by shooting. So there is not like a calculated, planned, go into somebody's house, murder, disembodied, none of that stuff. Not what we normally talk about. This is legitimately, all of them were killed in a drive-by shooting. They were also all random pedestrians who were literally just walking around minding their own fucking business. There was no rhyme or reason to who they picked or who they killed.
So they call that what, a crime of opportunity?
I guess. But because I understand it's hard, like Jay said earlier, it's hard to think that these guys would be considered serial killers because of the fact that they're drive-by shooting. But buckle up, Buttercup, because there's a lot to these guys. So the two men, they would drive around at night until they just found somebody that they could shoot. They would use a .22 rifle and a .410 gauge shotgun. So that's what they would use to shoot people. There is one case where a victim was stabbed to death and not shot to death, which is also weird because if you're doing drive-bys, that means you physically got out the car and stabbed somebody to death.
Maybe they missed and he's like, ha ha!
I don't know. And most of their victims were shot in Phoenix. If they weren't in Phoenix, they took place in nearby cities. So this was all in Arizona. I'm going to go through the victims who were injured, not murdered. Okay, the victims that they actually injured. So they injured Tony Menendez, who was 39, and he was shot May 17th, 2005. Reginald Ramillard, who was shot May 24th, 2005. Barbara Whitner was shot December 29th, 2005. Timmy Torday was shot in the neck December 29th, 2005. Clarissa Rowley, who was 21, was shot December 30th, 2005. Kibbley Tambadou, she was shot in her back May 2nd, 2006 by Dale. Timothy Davenport, he was actually stabbed in the back. That's the one who was stabbed, and he was slashed in the face on May 17th, 2006 by Samuel. So Samuel is the one who actually got out the car and stabbed him. James Hodge was shot on May 30th, 2006. Miguel Rodriguez was shot in the side May 31st, 2006. Daryl Davies was also shot on May 31st, 2006. Paul Patrick was shot June 8th, 2006. Elizabeth Clark was shot in her left hip June 11th, 2006. Frederick Sena was shot June 20th, 2006. Diane Bain was shot July 1st, 2006. Jeremy Ortiz was shot July 1st, 2006. Joseph Roberts was shot July 3rd, 2006. David Perez was shot July 7th, 2006. Ashley Armatada was shot in the back of the head on July 8th, 2006 and survived. Gary Begay was shot July 8th, 2006. Michael Cordray was shot July 11th, 2006. And Raul Garcia was shot July 22nd, 2006. So these are people that they actually shot, injured. But if you notice, you see how many times, different dates. That means they were like out literally almost every night, just driving by and shooting whoever the fuck they wanted to.
It's crazy it went for so long, like
a whole year almost. And what's crazy,
like with the witnesses who didn't die, like this was the
it's
car,
a drive-by, right?
Like,
well, just wait for the shots. You might figure out why it is that didn't happen. Now, here are the murdered victims. David Estrada was 20 years old. He was shot to death on June 29th, 2005. Nathaniel Schaffner, who was 44, was murdered on November 11th, 2005 while trying to protect a dog from being shot. Which makes me so sad.
That's the hero.
Jose Ortiz was 44. He was murdered December 12th, 2005. Marco Carrillo was 28 and was murdered December 29th, 2005. Claudia Gutierrez Cruz was 20, was shot and killed by Samuel on May 2nd, 2006. And Robin Blasnick was 22 and was killed by Dale on July 30th, 2006. July 31st, so the day after Robin Blasnick was killed. This is actually when Dale and Samuel first become suspects by the police. And the reason for this is they were following some tips that they had received from the public that was like, this is what I'm seeing. Because could you imagine living in Phoenix, Arizona at this time? You don't want to fucking go out after
every car,
night.
you'd be like, ooh.
Well, and anytime at night, you're like terrified you're going to get shot because nobody knows where the hell this is, who's doing what. So they are asking for the public's help and they get all these tips. Well, they had a guy who happened to be a friend of Samuel's who calls into the police. And he basically says like, hey, I actually think that Samuel, my friend Samuel, and his friend Dale are responsible for these shootings. And they're just kind of like, and why would that be? And he's like, well, I was hanging out with Samuel one day and we were kind of drinking. We were a little drunk. And Samuel actually told me that he and Dale were responsible for all these shootings. And he's like, and I've just kind of been holding on to the info. So I think I need to tell you. Now, it does come out later that Ron, who turns in Samuel, he actually dies before they even go to trial and stuff. But he actually had told the police the reason why he was calling was because he felt like Robin Blasnick's death was on him because he didn't tell the police earlier. Not to be rude, but it kind of is. So the police then take this information because at this point they're like, well, I guess maybe, it's possible because, for whatever reason, his information and other people's information was kind of like, oh, okay, I could see how maybe these guys could be it. So they get a court order and a warrant to put a listening device in the apartment of Dale and Samuel's because remember, they're roommates. So they were recorded talking about the shootings, in their apartment, which included details about the shootings that were never released to the public. So as soon as they get that information, they're like, okay, yeah, pretty sure these are the guys. So both men are arrested on August 3rd of 2006. And then the following morning, because they arrested him in the evening. So on August 4th, the morning of August 4th, the police come out in the public and basically says hey, we made an arrest. And they tell the public, we think we know who these people are. They also stated that not only were these two men arrested for the different drive-by shootings, but they also believe they had a link that both of these guys would be linked to an arson fires that had been at two different Walmart stores on June 8th. And these fires actually resulted in up to $10 million in damages, how much the fires did.
Damn.
So they're going to probably try to slap those charges on him. So Dale Hausner is actually charged with a total of 87 crimes. Now, these include 8 murders, 19 attempted murders, multiple aggravated assaults, drive-by shootings, firearms charges, cruelty to animals, yes,
got him,
and arson. And he is found guilty of 6 murders and 80 overall charges on March 13th, 2009. So, first of all, the fact that they could even charge him with 80 counts of anything tells you how badly they wanted to keep these guys in prison.
Yeah.
But just 19, they were able to charge him with 19 assault charges, meaning they at least injured 19 people in these drive-bys. Now, on March 27th, 2009, he is sentenced, and he is sentenced to 6 death penalties for 6 of the 8 people that he was found guilty. Or not found guilty. Yeah, found guilty.
He should be.
Now, Dale tells his lawyers, don't argue against the death sentences that I've received. He tells them that if he told his lawyers before they decided the death penalty, he said, hey, listen, if I'm put to death, if that's what I'm given, then the families of the victims, they might have a chance to heal. So don't fight it. That's what he tells them. However, he never actually admits to ever committing any of the crimes. He's never come out and said he did them. He never said anything. He's never pled guilty. That is why he got charged with so much shit, because he did not plead guilty. He went to court to fight it. Now, there was one mandatory appeal that was lodged. It was mandatory. I have no idea why it was mandatory, but it was. But after that appeal, Dale waived all of his rights to any other appeals for the future. So he was like, I don't want to even try to fight this anymore. Now, before he was sentenced, in his sentencing hearing, he was allowed to speak, because they are allowed to speak, and he spoke to the jury for a half an hour. And during this time, he actually apologized to a ton of people, including members of his family. And he even said he ruined the family name by becoming doing what he did. Now, Samuel Dieteman pleads guilty, and he pleads guilty to 2 murders.
He's like, that's all I did was 2.
My guess is he just struck a deal, right? Or maybe he was used against Dale, and maybe that's how this whole thing came about. I don't know. But he also pled guilty to conspiracy to commit the other murders. So conspiracy and then actual murder. And he ends up receiving a life sentence without parole. So as it sits today, Samuel actually remains in prison in Arizona. But on June 19th of 2013, Dale Hausner is found unconscious in his cell. and later that day, he is pronounced dead. The medical examiner ends up determining that his cause of death was an antidepressant overdose.
I wonder if he was like, what are they like, where you pretend to take it, so he stockpiled them, and then took them all at once.
You know what? That is actually a good. That actually makes a lot of sense. Like maybe he was just planning on offing himself, and that was just a way to do it. So that is, because we have no background information, that's the main story of Dale and Samuel. But of course, as always, I do have some shots, which always seem to be the thing that take us a little while. Anyway, so do you want those?
Well, that's what we're here for.
Okay. So the Phoenix police originally believed that the serial shooter was just one person. And what they felt, which, listen, I'm not trying to dog on anybody, but this is the dumbest fucking shit I've ever heard. So what they felt had happened is that there was one person who was responsible for 4 murders and 25 shootings that began in May 2005. And then the other 13 shootings, which happened to be in the fucking same area, were committed by somebody else. Like, how is that what crosses your mind? You have the same area with multiple shootings, deaths, and injuries, and you're like, well, the last 13 were by somebody else who did the same fucking shit. I don't understand how that is what you thought. So when they started looking for the serial shooter, they're looking for like one person who only did these, what did they say, 25 shootings with 4 murders. And then the other ones are somebody else. I don't understand. There must be more to it that I'm not getting, because I don't understand how that is your fucking logical explanation.
The only thought process I have listening back to what you had said is they used 2 different guns. So maybe that's how they separated it. It was like, oh, these were the 22 and these were the shotguns.
Yes, that could be, because what I did
Because if you're thinking one person, then you're like, there's no way they got multiple guns trying to shoot it out the car.
And see, I would think absolutely. You know how many people I know that have a mass amount of guns in their home, that would be the best way to not get caught.
But I'm like, y'all are thinking it's one person, but I'm like, y'all are cops. Like, have you ever tried to drive
I was just gonna
shoot
say,
a shotgun?
That's what I was going to say, is I'm sitting here going,
it's a 10 gauge, so it's not as powerful as a 12 gauge, but
yeah,
come on.
But if you're going to sit there and try to tell me that you actually think that these drive-by shootings are by one individual person, like, how many people do drive-by shootings? Genuinely. And when they do drive-by shootings, how many times is it more than one person in the car? Pretty much every time. So I thought that was a really stupid, like, why would your first inclination, or like your first instinct, not be, ooh, we might be looking for a couple or a group of people that are in a car? I mean, up to like 5. Like, you don't know how many people, but one person in a car shooting people just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
Now, a few weeks before both men were arrested for the murders, Dale actually interviewed Mike Tyson as part of his job in his sports journalism.
Mike's probably like...
Which Mike Tyson was asked later, like, what he thought of meeting Dale, because he met him for like this interview, and he just said that he was a small guy but nice.
Yeah, he was a small guy, but he was nice.
Now, apparently Samuel also had bragged that they would do, this is what he told, Ron, the guy that he supposedly drunkenly told about the shootings. He actually told Ron that, oh yeah, Dale and I will go out and we're going to do some RVing. Okay. And
random violence.
Close. Oof. Random recreational violence.
Oh, I just missed recreational. Yeah. So it's RVing.
But he said that's what they nicknamed it. So when they wanted to go out and go do some drive-bys, they'd be like, hey, you want to go RVing? Which I laugh because we have a trailer and it's like,
yeah, so if your parents like, do you want to go RVing? I'll be like, no. Get out of here, crazies.
Dale ends up writing a letter when he's waiting for a hearing on competency. Now, this is after his trial. I think this was actually because he waived his right for appeals. Okay. So he's not waiting. He had 2 different trials where they tried to like prove incompetency. Like almost like he's not competent enough to say that he wants the death penalty. And this is what he actually wrote. The state of Arizona wants me to get the death penalty before and during my trial. I was found guilty and given 6 death sentences. And now that I want to get executed, suddenly my mental state is in question. So if I am found incompetent to waive my appeals, does that mean I was also incompetent to stand trial? That's something to think about, isn't it? I'm not insane. I'm of sound mind. I simply wish to get the punishment handed down to me, but more quickly. I mean, really, what's a guy got to do to get snuffed out?
Snuff's a great word, but I just think
He's
he
got
was
a
just
fucking point,
Yeah, I
though.
mean, I think he was just done with life, and he's like, look, and,
He did
and
his
maybe that's
shit.
why he ended up taking his own life,
Well, that's
because
what
it
I'm
was
saying.
like, because we hear about people
How
on
long?
death row for decades.
Well, let's see. He got sentenced in 2009, and
yeah,
he
he
was
probably would still be on death row right now.
100%. And to be fair, that is a fair fucking question. If somebody gets handed the death penalty and then they say like, okay, I'm willing to accept it. Fuck, my life sucks anyways. Oh, okay, you're just whatever. Take me for what I am, accepting it and not fighting it. And then because he doesn't want to fight it, now all of a sudden you're like, well, hold on though. There's something mentally wrong. If you genuinely think, and I agree with what he said, if it were to ever have been fought and he was to be incompetent, his lawyers could absolutely get his
100%.
shit overturned. And I'm sitting there going, that is the realest shit I've ever heard. You're not going to be incompetent to accept the death penalty, but not be incompetent to do your crime. Like that correlation is there.
To be honest, that's probably why whoever was fighting it, that's probably why the judge was like, no,
Hell
he's
no.
competent, because like we say he's incompetent at this point, and it was probably an individual or an organization that is like, well, we stand for prisoners, so they probably
an anti-death penalty.
Yeah, so they were like, no, nobody in their right mind would say yes, kill me, and it's like, well.
And actually, that's normally true, but there's been quite a few. I mean, we've done actually there was one serial killer in Utah that we did who did the same thing. After he was handed his sentence, he told his lawyers, do not try to appeal. I'm going to accept my punishment. Because here's the other part. Dale could be a big flaming piece of shit. He also could have been a great guy who fell on, hard times, was super depressed, got into drugs and did really fucking stupid shit. Drive-by shootings, in my honest opinion, this is going to sound weird, but I feel like people who do drive-by shootings, it's the coward's way, right? Because you're not willing to stand there and watch somebody bleed to death. You're not willing to stand there. You're totally detached. So it's one of those things
especially if it's random people, right?
Right.
Like,
so for me, I sit there and I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, I would not link Dale as a serial killer who woke up in the morning and was like, I'm gonna fucking kill somebody, yay. Like, I don't see that part. Now, do I think that he was struggling mentally? Yes. Do I think that when he was shooting people, he had intent to kill some people? I don't know. I really don't know, because they injured a lot of people, and only out of the 30-something people they've shot, only 8 of them died. Is there always the intent to kill when you're shooting? Sure, maybe. But also, he used to joyride with his brother, drunk as fuck, shooting guns out the window. So for all you know, that's what this was. Not that it excuses any of it.
No, absolutely not. And you can see when he's sobered up that
that's
he's
what I'm
apologizing.
saying.
He's
No,
like,
that's what
we
I'm saying.
ruined the name. But he realizes what I've done is wrong, and I need to stand for the consequences of it.
Right.
And,
that's what I'm saying. And for me, and okay, now this is the shittier thing to say, but it is what it is. There is also a very real chance that after his sons died, he didn't give a fuck about his life anymore anyways.
It could have been.
Because
I know that
know
was his thing. Like, maybe we'll get caught by the cops and a shootout and we'll die. Like, maybe he just didn't give a shit.
Because I know I've always talked about what would happen if somebody were to kill my kids. They are adults, but if somebody were to kill my kids, I love you, Jay, but I don't know what else I have left to live for. I have a husband, but my children are a big part of me. So if somebody came and killed my kids,
we're Thelma and Louise in this.
We are going to Thelma and Louise, or not Thelma and Louise. Not Thelma and
I'll
Louise.
be Thelma.
No, not Thelma and
Bonnie
Louise.
and
Bonnie
Clyde.
and Clyde. We'll Bonnie and Clyde that shit, and I'll find the people. And I would honestly, I do feel that if somebody were to kill my children, I would have zero problems killing somebody who killed, getting revenge, and then gladly going to jail. Like I have, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel like Dale is. It's like almost like nobody killed his kids like that, but I'm just saying it's almost like you said, he was doing all this shit, ends up injuring and killing a lot of people. And when he finally gets caught, first of all, he's not doing drugs. He's not drinking. And maybe the reality was, man, I ruined a lot of people's fucking lives, and I deserve to die for it. Like, period. Because there are people who might feel that way. If you're a morally inept person, you might actually feel that you deserve to die if you kill somebody.
Right.
Period. I probably would feel like I deserve to die if I killed somebody on purpose. You know what I mean? Like if I went out and did something like this, if I was not in my right state of mind, but then I got got sober or whatever, I'd be like, holy shit, yeah, I think I deserve to die, so go ahead and kill me. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Whereas Samuel, on the other hand, didn't really seem to have much remorse about nothing, right? Now, the final thing I'm going to say, oh, and by the way, he did punctuate that letter with a smiley face. Like that. That's how he ended his letter to the court. Like, bitch, gotcha. I feel like that's what it was. Like, gotcha, bitch. You're not going to fucking tell me I'm incompetent, because then I'm just going to fight you to be saying I'm incompetent when I did the kill.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just showing you how smart I am.
Now, this is a quote from Dale himself. And he said, "My favorite thing is, when somebody is walking away, it gives me, a couple of extra seconds to aim. I don't have to worry about them looking. I get too paranoid of somebody walking towards me. And while I'm trying to aim, they're freaking gonna see me or not. Not so much see me, but see the gun sticking out wrong or something and be able to give a description." So you had said maybe people could describe all these people who survived. That is why they didn't have a lot of descriptions, because they would not shoot people, but in the back, really. So they would not shoot people unless they weren't looking at the car. And his whole thing is that he's saying is, my favorite thing was to be sitting there with a gun pointed out the window. As long as they were like walking away from me, it gave me a couple minutes to aim and really shoot. So when you hear that, though, he obviously had intent to kill people. That wasn't just a thing, right? So that also tells you, though, he most definitely was like, maybe not incompetent enough to not be held accountable, but that's some kind of wild ass thinking. Like, oh yeah, I do these drive-bys, but by the way, when I do it, I always make sure that they're freaking looking the other way, so they can't give a description of the gun or the description of me before I can kill them.
I mean, or that's really smart. What you're doing is wrong, and so it's like, well, we want to keep doing it and not get caught.
That's what I'm saying, though, is people who have that mentality, like, there's definitely something a little off there. But I would say with this particular case, I was really disappointed to see there wasn't a lot of background, because it is one of those things that they both seem to live really normal lives, both of them, until they both got divorced. And then it was like, we're going to be murderers. And it's just like, there's no fucking way that your divorce from your wife is what made you turn into murderers. But one of them lost their sons, both of them in a car accident. The other one got his daughters either was left with his daughters or had his daughters taken away at some point. So maybe the trigger was their children. Maybe their children were so important to them that
there's nobody left, nothing to live for.
Right. And that is a good thought process, is maybe they just felt they had nothing to live for. So you put two people together who have that same mentality. They start just kind of fucking around, and then one day they're like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's go shoot some people and see what happens." And then it becomes fun for them. It's a thrill, and now they're trying to get that thrill so much. But for a full year, like when I was reading how many different dates they shot people, I was like, God, like that.
Yeah, that's honestly, nowadays they might even be able to tag them with like terrorism, because when you look at the definition of terrorism, it's to instill terror into people, and doing it that long so often, like, that's what you did. People are afraid. Yeah. They're afraid to go out. They're afraid to do anything because of what you're doing.
Yep. So anyways, this was the most off serial killer we've done so far. We have never done a drive-by serial killer before. And like you said, I get it. When I first started seeing it too, I was like, oh, how is this a serial killer? But when I'm reading it, oh, it is, because it's multiple different times, cooling off periods. There's a couple of days, there's a couple of weeks, there's a couple of months in between the killings, but they weren't doing your typical things. They were, genuinely, the only thing that you can really think of as to what they were doing was to basically get their kicks. That's what they were doing. There was not any rhyme or reason behind it. And from what we can tell, there's not really crazy, abuse suffered in their home. Even if they grew up in rough homes, they would have shown, at least you would think, something throughout their adulthood, but they didn't until this started happening.
Right. Well, it's a weird one, but we got through it.
We did. So if you like what you hear, And if you like what we talk about, if you like listening to us talk about the serial killers, make sure you are following us if you're not already. Click that follow button and a new episode will come out every Thursday and you can hear our lovely voices and hear our lovely stories. So,
And for the people that are following us, thank you. And we appreciate you.
the only thing I have left to say is thank you so much for listening to our story about the serial shooters, Dale Hausner and Samuel Dieteman. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.